Hi everyone, welcome to THT, and today we are talking about the second week of Planetary Qualifiers. As usual, the video is sponsored by Card Market, the biggest marketplace in Europe to buy and sell cards. Good result here for our members of Team Enigma. We had Dylan and T85 who took part in the PQ Munich, and T85 was playing Boss Blue. He was undefeated during Swiss with a 6-0 record, with a 7-0 record, I believe. No, 6-0 record, sorry. And Dylan only lost to T85 in the Swiss and ended up taking out the whole tournament as a champion. So he was playing Sabine ECL. So congratulations to our German members of Team Enigma. They are rocking so hard. So this is the winners of specifically the second week of PQ that happened. So as you can see, Han 1 came out on top. We got a couple of interesting results here with 2 Palp 1 taking wins as well. 1 Aiden, 1 Vader 4, and 1 Poe. Obviously, different PQs have different numbers of players. There's some PQs have loads of players in them, some who have fewer players. So not all those wins are equal in terms of importance, I would say, but it's nice to see a little overview. And then in a more reliable data, in my opinion, is the numbers of top 8 in the second week PQ. And here you can clearly see that Sabine is the one that came out on top in most of the top 8/top 4s of those tournaments. And this one is a little bit more reliable because usually they give you a top 8 for the medium to large size PQs, and they give you a top 4 for the smaller ones. So it gives you kind of a... there's a couple of interesting decks that we're going to look at. We got a Boba 2, a Rex, a Hondo Naka, a Poe, 2 Aidens, 2 Kazudes. And also very interesting result is 8 Palp 1. So we've seen Palp 1 kind of raising in popularity. I think it's a very good deck against anything that is not a Sabine deck. And yeah, Sabine is still, of course, very prevalent in meta. It's the best deck by far. But there's plenty of decks that are not Sabine that you can that Palp can have some really good matchup against. We see Vader 4 still doing very, very well. Vader 4 yellow. I think it's Vader 4 is slowly moving from the tier 3 to the tier 2 in terms of like popularity. So I think that it's going to be important maybe for future upcoming tournaments to have a plan to beat this deck, because it has it's a deck that really, if you have the right cards for the matchup, you can increase your win percentage by a lot. So I think it's going to become important to have a plan against this deck as we're moving on. And yeah, so moving on now to Kira still doing very well. And another interesting phenomenon here is that Quinlan is also kind of not doing so well. We see Cad Bane still hanging on, but yeah, Quinlan has definitely kind of fallen in popularity. It's not even it used to be the biggest deck in the game, the most powerful deck in the meta, at least it was considered to. And now it's falling off. It's not even in the top 5 of the most successful deck of the second week. So we'll see if this trend continues. But this is something I wanted to say about Quinlan when we talked about it, as some people were scared that Quinlan was just simply going to take over the game. And I personally didn't believe in this because, once again, Quinlan is never a deck that had the entire meta stacked against it. It's a deck that is very, very strong, but once you get an entire meta start against it, it's a different story. I still think it's a very strong deck, obviously, but it's obviously not a deck that's performed as well once it becomes a target, which has clearly been. But maybe as the focus goes away from Quinlan and focuses more on Sabine and Kira, maybe Quinlan will have something to say about this. Some pretty interesting results here. This is the combined data of both weeks of PQ. In this case, you see Kira is still on top after a very, very strong week 1. But obviously now it's a little bit more balanced as far as PQ winners. And if you move on to the overall top 8, Sabine is on top, but it's a much more balanced. As you can see, it's very, very diverse meta here, and there's quite a number of decks that you can play. You can clearly identify here the tier 1 that is in between Sabine, Kira, Han, Quinlan. You can go as low as Cad Bane maybe. And then you see the tier 2 here, moving on, and then you got a tier 3, clearly identifiable. This is the overall percentage of the meta. This includes every tournament in Jump to Light Speed. So as you can see, it's very balanced. I think it's as balanced as it's ever been. I think it is the most balanced meta we've ever had since set 1. So that's it's obviously great. And you see that the most popular decks have been ECL, the 15% of the meta, which is not 15.8, which is a lot, but it's not like crazy. And once you only start taking turn the leaders, it goes up to 16.9. So definitely a pretty healthy meta, to say the least. So now we're going to focus on the list. The first one is the one that won the PQ in Dallas, apparently. And that's the one, so this is kind of like reminiscent to the Kira Data Vault that Yulcera did top 8 with. And it's a deck that has been built to beat Quinlan and to beat Sabine, and I think it seems to be doing that pretty well. And it also has game into control because it has a very powerful engine, value engine between, of course, the C-3PO R2D2 combo, the Mon Mothma that you can bounce with Bright Hope, Om-1 you can broke by Mon Mothma, plus U-Wing reinforcement. There's a very strong like engine for value. You also had tech. So there's a couple of interesting things in this list. Is running Akbar because this deck is very good at providing ball presence. Akbar can be brought from U-Wing reinforcements, can be brought back from Om-1. So very nice to see this card making a return in Star Wars Limited after being kind of ignored for a very long time. It was really popular in set 1, and then after set 1 it kind of fell off. And it's a deck that, it's a card that is nice to see here in this deck, and I think it's quite powerful. So I really like that. Other interesting innovation compared to the version of Yulcera is the presence of Fleet Lieutenants. I think it's a great idea. The deck plays quite a few rebels because it needs to have a lot of rebels to work with Mon Mothma. So you're running Fleet Lieutenant, it's going to give you a little punch, a little bit of... all those units are very good, but they are also quite low in health, so it's hard to really produce value with them. It's hard to make them do something useful. Fleet Lieutenants turns those 1-3, those 1-4s into actual weapons that you can use to kill enemy units. So I think that's quite nice. So I really like the inclusion of the Fleet Lieutenants, which I don't think was in the original version either. So yeah, pretty cool deck. I still think the deck pretty much auto-loses to control, and I don't think the restocks and the regional governors really changes that. But I think it's a deck that is very well rounded, and it will be the majority of the meta. So it's very nice to see. This is doing very well. So he won the PQ Dallas. Moving on, there's this version of Han Solo Data Vault that won the PQ Chicago. So this is the mid-range Han Solo deck that has done pretty well. It's pretty much like the green, red, white shell, mid-range shell. We saw, of course, the Sabine Data Vault deck winning the PQ. Winning the sector qualifier in Lille. But I think even though I was not particularly a massive fan of this Sabine build, I think the idea is really sound, and the idea of just building a mid-range deck around those colors is very strong, and obviously a very strong leader to do that with the Han Solo, the old Han Solo. And you can see this particular version, the runnings, of course, you're still running the strong synergies of Poe Dameron, synergy Han Solo allow you to get a 4/5 for 3, which is very strong. Gets, of course, a lot of timely reinforcement, to confiscate, so he basically clearly has identified the weaknesses of the deck is you need to get upgraded or very large units. So he has confiscate to deal with those upgrades, and for very large units he runs out of aspect Fell the Dragon, which may sound scary, but if it solves your problem, then it is something that is in the realm of possible. The Sham Syndulla in the main deck to beat the soft control ramp decks, which I think are naturally a weakness for that type of deck. A card that nobody really talks about, but I think is very underplayed. This is the Rebellion's Hammerhead. Rebellion's Hammerhead is very strong. It's a 5/7 for 6 of really good stats, with an immediate impact on the game, deals damage to a unit equal to the numbers of cards that you have in your hands. It is a kind of deck that doesn't run that many swarming units. It runs basically Han Solo's ability not to swarm the board like an ECL aggro Han Solo would do, but it just uses Han Solo's ability to draw very large units faster. So that kind of deck doesn't necessarily spend its cards very much. So you can have like a decent size hand running Hammerhead, and it comes to play kill something, and leaves a very huge threat on the board, which I think is pretty nice. We got the Gar area attack pod, which is very good combo with Han, and then we got a variety of very large late game units. The Wrecker is a little bit awkward because having to destroy your own resource in this deck, but it still is a very strong mid-range cards. Also, he's not running ECL, but he's running Timely Intervention. So Wrecker's not as good as it would be in an ECL deck or even Sabine ECL, but still a very powerful card that deserves to be played. And yeah, we got some more grindy salvage Reinforcement Walker shenanigans coming in the sideboard, and that's the deck. Pretty cool. Then we got a list. Oh, this is not the list of this week. Yeah, okay. The next list is the Chicago finalist, who came out with a Cad Bane blue deck, which is a deck that was played in as a counter to Django. But now that the deck doesn't have to worry about Django anymore, it can run a different set of cards. This is pretty much what you would expect here. We see the Outlaw Rim Outlaws here, which is Underworld combined with Cad Bane to get the ping. You're seeing the Dryden Vase combo with Cad Bane, the Relentless Pursuit, which is still a fantastic tool against aggro. A great way to kind of deal. It's really strong against those Han Solo Chewbacca lists. They can really take over the game very quickly if you don't deal with them. Only 2 copies of McClunky in this particular version, which is interesting. Runs a lot of smuggle cards here with the 3 copies of Longpike and even the First Light and the Bazine, despite running a 30 HP base. So not running out of cards anytime soon. So kind of like this kind of mid-range control list. Runs the Vigilance in the sideboard though, so it doesn't really have game into control, at least in the main deck. But after sideboard, it should auto-win against control once it has the Bounty Hunter crew and the Vigilance. So yeah, pretty cool list. If you want to give it a try with the adapted, you wanted to have an adapted version of Cad Blue in the current meta, this is a good call. Chicago was a relatively large PQ, I think it was 114 players, I believe, so it's worth taking a look. Then we got the winner of PQ Saint Louis, a much smaller PQ, with a very interesting Gar Saxon list. So this is a mid-range deck that basically runs all the good cards that you have access to in this color combination, and just adds up cards that are just pretty strong with Gar Saxon, like Director Chronic, the Clients, Iden Versio, some pilots, of course, Outlaw TIE Vanguard, which I think is really strong with Gar Saxon. So this is a very interesting deck. There's a couple of cards that I'm a little bit surprised by. I think the Collector Star Hopper is a bit weird. I don't know in which situation you would want to play this card. From my experience, this card is only good in Ondo Onaka. I don't see why you would want to play this in Gar Saxon. That's just a 2-2 for 2 or 2-2 for 3 in space is pretty terrible, and I think there's much better smuggle cards to play in this slot. Also, he's running the Victor Leader despite running a substantial amount of non-space unit, which is a bit odd as well. So there's a lot of weird choices in this deck, but it's definitely interesting. It is basically a mid-range deck of the Gar Saxon deck that is able to be very aggressive with the Director Chronic into like double like Inferno 4 plus Onyx Squadrons and turn 2, like you can do like kind of things like that, or even do like turn 1 Chronic, then turn 2 Inferno 4 plus Outlaw TIE Vanguard, give an experience token, give the +1 attack bonus, also play 3 copies of Cover the Wings to basically shield the unit, gives a +1 attack, and then it leaves a 2-2 after that. So there's some pretty explosive start that this deck can do. And then it has some pretty solid late game as well, even though it won't be able to beat a control deck, but it's a deck that is also running Vigilance, which is very shocking. Like, Vigilance seems to be just way too slow in a deck like this, but yeah. So, wanted to show you that list. Then we got a Poe Data Vault list. So, in the same idea of trying to run this con, this is the one that won the PQ Thionville. I have no idea how to pronounce this, even though I'm French, so I should be, it's a French PQ. And there were actually a lot of interesting decks in this tournament. It was interesting. There was a lot of interesting decks in this. This is a small event. This one runs really the Poe Dameron Data Vault, so kind of like the same idea as this Sabine Data Vault deck, but instead of running Sabine, runs a bit more of a mid-range leaders like Poe Dameron. At least it is a resistance leader, so you can actually get your Sentinel as a Radis, which is kind of neat. Also, is running 3 copies of the 8 ship, so they have possibilities here to cheat a big ship into play, which is very interesting. And then he's also running 3 copies of Eject. It's funny because I'm not a Poe Dameron player, so I don't exactly know how good Eject is in his deck. My assumption it would be pretty important, but I've seen so many Poe Dameron ECL deck not running Eject. I'm starting to think that it's not really that good of a card, and now I'm seeing this Poe Dameron Data Vault list running 3 full package of Eject, which obviously will allow you to put Poe Dameron on turn 2 into play as a 4/6 and draw a card in the process, and be able to redeploy your Poe Dameron later on. It's pretty nice. So the rest of the deck is pretty much just a lot of space units, as you can expect with Poe, and then obviously very aggressive. We're still running 3 copies of 4 cards, I believe in. And keep in mind that this person is running Eject despite running 4 cards, I believe in. So he must be thinking that Eject is really, really strong in his deck. He's running a substantial amount of known non-heroism, but since he's running 60, I think he can afford it. Moving on now to an Anakin Data Vault deck. So once again, we're continuing the trend of those mid-range green, white, red decks, which are very, very recent. Basically, before a couple of weeks ago, red, green, white was pretty much only exclusively an archetype that was considered to be aggressive. And now we're seeing a brand new spring of those kind of like archetypes of mid-range archetypes running this color combination. And I think that's very exciting because it's definitely an archetype which we didn't see so much. It was only basically just red, white, green, aggro, but never mid-range. And this was once again a good example of a mid-range running the 3 copies of Spark of Hope, but without the resupply. So it's that's very interesting as well. It prefers to play Spark of Hope over resupply. I mean, it runs quite a few units that can kind of sacrifice themselves to kind of give you more chance to play Spark of Hope, but then does the lack of reliability is really worth the one less resource is not necessarily obvious. Runs a Bravado with a General's Blade, so really looking to do some Anakin untapped shenanigans. The Stella Guerrera, which is great in an Anakin deck that runs Data Vault. In this case, this deck runs quite a few tactics. It runs a Dogfight, 3 copies of Dogfight, great combo with Wrecker, great combo with Anakin, which allows her to attack with a unit and deal tons of overwhelm damage. Also runs Shutdown, Strike True as part of the tactic toolbox, the timely intervention. I'm actually quite surprised to only see 1 copy of timely intervention. This card is so good in general, and obviously you can fetch it out of it to give you more tactic for Stella Guerrera, and there's a lot of cards that really combines very well with it in the deck. So yeah, and also of course Daring Raid as tactics. No open fire. The deck really relies on Anakin's ability to be able to kill medium-sized units. A deck that might basically be scared of running into a control deck, but basically this is what the Bravado plan is for, I guess, is that trying to get, so probably a very weak deck to control. But other than that, a pretty interesting deck. There's 2 copies of Rule of Respect in the sideboard, which is interesting. Once again, it's kind of the idea of countering enemies very strong against this Vader deck, and we see also Bombing Run making the deck to kind of fight Vader, I would say, is kind of the plan here. I just wanted to say that you can pick up Ohm 1 for €5.50. It's one of those legendary from set 1 which is seeing a lot more play, especially with the rise of those green-white mid-range deck, whether it's green-white-blue with Rey Data Vault or the green-white-red mid-range decks. Home 1 is starting to become more and more of an important card. It still remains, since set 1, the best late game card available in a color combination. Next we got this Han Solo Audacious Smugglers that won the PQ Malaga in Spain. So it's nice to see how the Han Solo deck has evolved since the new set. This one is quite different we saw some lists that were very similar to the set 1, sorry, the set 3 list, but without the DJ combo, which obviously has been banned. This one, as you can see, runs the new adventure with the stolen ATLer. So it runs the ATLer and a new adventure. Remember, if your opponent kills your stolen ATLer, you can actually play a new adventure on the stolen ATLer to reset it and then play it on your side. So it's almost the idea of like killing the stolen ATLer and bringing it back into play for only 2 resources, which is very efficient and a really good way to offset the downside of stolen ATLer. Also runs 10T4, so substantial amount of vehicles, and even plays 2 copies of Radiant 7, which this one is like a lot more surprising to see. It's not a card you would expect in a hand deck, and I wonder in which situation you would want to play this. Yeah, I would be interested to know exactly in what situation you really want to see this. It's the good thing about Radiant 7 is it is a 7-drop. And this deck really, so whenever you go for double ramp into, instead of going Ansel and Fizzness, this deck wants to go Ansel or Radiant 7 or Tanit 4, which is very interesting. So yeah, a lot of interesting, innovative deck choices in this particular deck. No Kira, even in the sideboard. It runs the 2 Tranquility. So if you guys wonder why there's 2 copies of Tranquility in the sideboard, this is an anti-control tech. The idea is you run Tranquility, you play Tranquility, you can get back the other copies of Tranquility, and then it just loops like this forever. So you basically can never run out of cards, and that can be really powerful to and it's also another 7-drop you can kind of like double ramp into with Han Solo. The things I don't like about Tranquility anymore is like obviously his abilities and when defeated, if I'm not mistaken. Let me double check that actually. Yeah, no, it's a when played ability, never mind. So yeah, it's a combo that still works. That you can just loop around. It's a bit slow, but but it can be very powerful in some very grindy matchups. So moving on now to the next list, it's a Boba yellow list. It's actually a deck I've been working on personally, so I have my own version of the deck. So I have pretty strong opinions about what I like, what I dislike about this particular list. It's a one that did top 5 in PQ Malagai, but it pretty much benefits from a lot of the new innovations. We got the Fireball, which is really strong with Boba Fett because it can basically, for 2 resources, you can ambush into a 4 health unit, which we know is a very important breakpoint in this new set because of the Falcons. It has obviously the X34 land speeders, which are basically 3/3 ambush in this deck. That's very nice into anything that's 2/3. So it's kind of like the new kind of Cloud Riders. We had the Contracted Hunters, which is again 5/4 for 3, can kill a 5 health units. It won't stay alive though; it will have to die at the end of the turn. It's something I personally did not play, but it's something that you can do. He's playing Spark of Hope over the resupply, so he thinks he has a really reliably ability to kind of like get rid of his own resources. If something becomes too big, he can still bounces the 3 Waylays, 2 Bamboozle to get rid of them, even the Change of Heart, so very well equipped all around. What's really surprised me about this list, so overall the list makes a lot of sense. It's very Blue Leader is also a massive upgrade for the deck. Blue Leader is such a great card in this particular deck. There's 2 things that surprised me a little bit in this list. The first one is the Chewbacca. It doesn't really have any 2-drops in space that really sticks to make a Chewbacca turn 2. So I guess Chewbacca is more kind of a toolbox card for the U-Wing reinforcement. It's really good to strong against control, so I guess it's more me. I play the Chewbaccas in the sideboard. The other thing that surprises me is not a single copy of Boba Fett armor. Boba Fett armor is very strong in the right matchup, so I would consider this at least in the sideboard. There's a lot of anti-upgrades in the meta though, so maybe that's the reason why it's not played. But what is very weird is like he's running Shadowed Intentions instead. I guess this is against control, but yeah, like Boba Fett's armor is really strong in some matchups. So, but yeah, interesting deck, and definitely something I would look into it. 52 card as well. now we're moving on to our Emperor Palpatine. This one won the PQ Mississippi, and is running a Lake Country as a base. So in the context of a Palpatine double green deck, it does make sense to be running Lake Country instead of a green base, because you could be running Data Vault, but double green is one of the shallowest color in the entire game. So what I mean by shallow is like, it's a deck where you run out of good cards very quickly. Like it's the card that has the least amount of good cards, which means that having to get an extra 10 cards in the deck is a huge sacrifice, because it makes it so it's going to be harder to find the key card that you need for your deck. And it makes so maybe as time goes by and as we get more green cards, especially better double green cards, I think Data Vault, running Data Vault will make more sense. But for now, I think Lake Country is probably a better choice if you're running a double green Palpatine deck. And the reason for it is because you get an extra HP, first of all, and second of all, you get to get your important like resupply and your super technician. So you can make the argument, well, but you get an extra 3 command. Yeah, that's true, but since you're running you're running 10 extra card and then you're running 3 more ramps, so I guess it's kind of balance it out. But obviously Palpatine also gives you an easier time getting into your important late game cards like Devastators, Reinforcement Walker, get your Overwhelming Barrage more consistent, and getting your Emperor's Royal Guard more consistent, which is very important to stabilize the early game against aggro. And I think that's overall is maybe more important than running command and running Entropy's Lackey, which is kind of like the 2 double green card that you're really running in this deck. So it's a really cool deck. Runs the Poggle the Lester synergy with Shoeside, puts a bunch of tokens, has a 3 confiscates in the main deck because he knows that double greens, mono green struggles against very powerfully, really powerful upgrades. So I think it's a deck that is well built and makes a lot of sense to me. Obviously it's a deck that will pretty much auto lose to aggro, but maybe with Lake Country for extra HP, I don't think that really changes fundamentally the fact that aggro is going to be a bad matchup, but it can maybe allow you to win a couple of games, or at least allow you to win games against players which are not as good as you are. So, cool deck. And he also runs the Eager Escort Fighter, which has been really like kind of the new anti-Falcon card that people have been running lately, which I think makes a lot of sense. Okay, so really cool deck. And then we're running into another Lake Country deck, and this one is even cooler. It is the Han Solo 4. So Han Solo never tell me the odds. This one did top 6 in the PQ Chicago, which was a pretty large PQ, so a pretty good performance for this deck. And the way people have been building Han Solo lately is to be as a very, very aggressive deck. Most people will be playing in this red, but this one is running yellow. And basically the idea of this deck is that you're basically running the vast majority of the cards in the deck are either 1 drops or they are 3 drops, which in either way are going to be odd costed cards, which will synergize with Han Solo's ability. And not only that, so you get yourself to go turn 1, you can go double 1 odd drop opening, and then turn 2 you can go 3 drop, and then turn 4 you can go 3 drop plus double 2 drops. So you might think, well, this card is going to be running out of cards. But the thing is, this deck has some pretty powerful engine to draw some cards. We have, for example, Biaoshek, which when placed under the upgrade, you discard 2 cards from your hand, from your deck, and returns each of those cards with an odd card. So basically, in this deck, it almost draws you 2 cards. And you got C3PO, which is one of the very few even costed cards. I think it's the only even costed card in the entire deck. And this one basically... Han Solo's ability allows you to look at the top of your deck, so it's basically guarantee you to draw a card every single turn. So making C3PO basically a very powerful draw engine in this deck. So also it has very impactful leader deployments. You get to deploy. You're going to be able to untap a lot of resource. You're going to be playing a lot of units. It's very difficult for the opponent to just deal with all of them. And going wide has been like a very popular strategy in this set, whether you want onto ECL, with Vader, and now with this Han Solo deck. There's a lot more decks that are trying to go wide in this new meta. and that's something that has to be taken into account. It also runs 3 copies of Never Tell Me the Odds, which will discard 3 cards from your opponent's deck, and and basically what it does is that it deals damage to each odd even card being revealed that way. So basically from you, you're only running odd even cards. So this card is almost guaranteed to deal 3 damage. I think the only one, once again, C3PO is the only card you can hit that is not evenly costed. So this will very reliably deal 3 damage, and it will often deal 4 or 5 damage. I think you can reliably use it as an open fire, and which is, I think, is pretty good, because yellow doesn't have access to a lot of those kind of removals. And for anything that is larger size, you can just run Waylay. So very powerful draw engine. Is running Om1 as well, which is interesting. I don't know. Just probably like an anti-space that card. The fact that you don't run double yellow is not... so Mandalorian cannot be played as a 5/6. So then the question you might be wondering is, why run Lake Country instead of double yellow? Well, double yellow would give you access to Body Rook, which I think would be a big deal for this deck, and the possibility of running Mandalorian for 5/6 would be very nice too. And Cunning is good, but it is an even costed card, so it has this strong downside. So yeah, double yellow is not giving a lot. It's giving a couple of things, but it's not crazy. And we know how powerful it is to get 4 extra HP, especially in this kind of decks where you're really trying to race very hard against aggro decks. So this is a very interesting deck and definitely very unique. I love it, and I would definitely give it a shot at some point. And that's it. That's it for all the decks. All the decks I wanted to highlight. I'm obviously not going to take a look at every single decks I went in every single top 8. Otherwise, this video will take forever. Congratulations to everybody who did well in this PQ season, and I'll see you next time for another analysis. So expect for this week, I have a special like in-depth deck tag cooked for you with my updated version of Bosk. So stay tuned for that, and see you on the Discord for more discussion. And thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.